Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema podcast YouTube channel. The class of 1999 continues. We're going to catch up with a movie from the summer of 1999, which is very fitting given the title that the movie is. It is Spike Lee's drama Summer of Sam. And joining me to talk about the film is a writer and director and producer. We've had on the podcast before. He directed 2050 as well as produced Alienated. We talked about with him both times those have come out. Please join me in welcoming back to the podcast Princeton Holt. Thank you very much for
Hey,
joining me again.
hey, Brian, what's up, man? How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well.
Good.
I'm when you told me that you were finally when you were getting ready to rewatch Summer of Sam in preparation for this, I was definitely curious to get your opinion on it. This is a movie I have not seen since 1999. part
Whoa.
of it is part of it is because of the fact that I'll admit I've never been a particularly big fan of this one. There are certainly
Right.
other Spike Lee films that I've been huge fans of, not just stuff like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, but like 25th Hours, really good. Get on the Bus is phenomenal.
Right.
Um, but Summer of Sam is one that just did not work for me when I saw it in 1999. So I was really curious to see the rewatch, especially being more familiar with Spike Lee's work than I was back in 1999. Um, I still have my issues with it. I feel a bit better about it. I have a clearer idea of how I feel about the movie. Um,
Yeah,
what is your experience with the movie?
that's a good one. I let me ask you before if I can, like before I answer, what did you when you saw it in '99? Did you see it in the theater?
I did see it in theaters. Yeah.
Oh my God, you lucky SOB, man. I haven't seen it in the theater. My wife said she saw this in the theater, and
Hmm.
a couple of other people told me that they saw this in the theater back in '99. I don't remember seeing this in the theater. So I missed that experience altogether. I don't believe that I even have seen the. I usually go to um, sort of retro screenings
Right.
of older movies and of all the other Woody Allen, Spike, and Scorsese and Fellini, etc. Filmmakers, films that I've seen, old films. This was not one of them. So I'm even more blown away that you got to experience it in the theater. I rewatched it, and yeah, I like you. I do have some thoughts that have sort of evolved throughout the years, but overall, it remains the same in terms of my response to it. I love it.
Hmm.
I love the movie. It's not, I am partial. I am a Spike stan. Everybody knows that. I am crazy about Spike. I would argue that I might be his biggest fan. But again, like other filmmakers that I'm fans of, I don't ever assume that they have a perfect filmography. And
Right.
he's one of those. He does not have a perfect filmography, like almost all the other ones. And there's other films but let's just say there's other films of his that I have way more issues with than this one.
Okay.
Um, Mine are my issues here watching it this time are this how much of a dick this main character is that I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
This is
No.
probably one of the worst main character ever.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like we'll go ahead and jump into it on that. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, I think part of my thing with this movie is that I just can't. I can't get interest in the characters in this story. Like, I
Okay,
really can't. Like,
okay,
and you talk about Vinny, the John Leguizamo character. That way, I mean, he is a complete dick. I mean, he really is, and it's like I think And the thing is like part of the problem I have with this movie is that so much of so much of the story is about following these characters in their everyday lives, and during the summer of when Son of Sam is killing in this neighborhood. And I think that's one of the main problems with this is that if you don't at least have a certain degree of empathy for these characters and the paranoia and the tension that's going percolating through this neighborhood while Son of Sam is doing his killing,
Hmm.
it throws off the storytelling.
Right, absolutely. You almost you're not rooting for John Leguizamo to not get killed. Like
Yeah.
at some point, I was like, you know what? It'd be nice if he gets shot by the Summer Sam, by
Yeah.
Son of Sam. I'm like, why is he living? He
Hmm.
should have gotten killed, not not anybody else. They should have gotten him.
Right.
He's an awful character, man.
Well, and the thing,
Awful character.
well, and the thing is, it's like I will say one of the things that I did find interesting about his character, and in particular his relationship to Diona, the Mira Sorvino character, is
Yeah.
that the whole thing is basically it's something that ties into sort of the sexual revolution of the 70s, and
Okay.
their character is filled their relationship is basically built on sexual tension where it's like he's constantly cheating on her and all she wants to do is to please him,
Okay.
but she's uncomfortable with the ways that she's trying to please him, and it all comes up to his head when they end up at an orgy together.
Right.
Like that's the one part of that narrative that is interesting to me,
Right.
and when it gets into that part, that's when those two characters are at the more interesting, and you have actors like Leguizamo and Sorvino who've done really good work. It helps to have those characters do it, but at the same time, I those characters are otherwise written just so threadbare and just
Right.
very one note that it's hard, like we were saying with Vinny, it's hard to empathize with him.
Yeah, that's a great point. I gotta say, I've never thought about this before until now, until that second viewing, and then I only really was thinking about Vinny mostly. I was so disgusted by him that I might have missed Mia Savino's character. And you're right, it is a flat. There's some flat characterization there. To the point where it takes away from the narrative. I would even go a little further. Let's go ahead. So we agree on those two characters being sort of flat and poorly written. I would say the same thing about Richie. Um, Adrian Adrian Brady's character,
Yeah.
Brody. Yeah, his is. I mean, they give him something interesting to do, but you just never get resolution. Is he gay? Is he not gay?
Mm-hmm.
That's never clarified. Not that not that. I guess that's pretty. You're pretty. That was progressive. Back if they did that on purpose, then and they did that on purpose to make a statement that you don't need to decide. No, that was way before that was even a thing.
Right.
So I'm not giving the screenwriter. I'm not giving the screenwriter that much credit for being that far ahead. So I guess I'm looking at all of the characters when I think about it. I think just overall, this is a script that slipped through, and it's unfortunate because the reason I love it, Brian, is is what Spike's doing. It has so much. It has so much character. It's not character because actually I should have used that word. There's a lot of life in this movie. Can we agree? We can agree. It's really
we can
life.
agree on that because I mean the fact of the matter is it's like and the thing that really stands out the most in this movie, the stuff that I can't on second viewing made me realize that it's like this does have genuinely terrific moments, is basically all of this stuff, all of the scenes with Sam. all of the scenes in his apartment, all of the scenes with him killing, all of the scenes where we're basically getting our glimpses of David Berkowitz, who's played
Right.
by the amazing Michael
Right.
Bonalluto.
Another great performance.
And he's he's fantastic in this film. That's where this movie really hits its stride. It's like if the movie had been, I don't know how you tell the story necessarily. I mean, to a certain extent, I couldn't help but wonder, especially in the beginning with the first kill scene, I couldn't help but wonder if maybe David Fincher was inspired by this movie, and at least Spike Lee's handling of Son of Sam when he was making Zodiac. It's like I got that feeling where it's like you get that feeling of unease, of just suspense at death, at random death that doesn't really seem to have much of a purpose other than the fact that I must kill. And that's the thing that really stands out so fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, you're like, he's just killing you, not telling you why. I'm just here to kill as many people as possible, and you're not gonna know when to expect it and all that. And then what does that do? That gets the entire neighborhood on edge.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest takeaway now that I think about it, and I can, is that you can still tell this story with likable characters. You can still share. There is a way to share the hysteria, even that it caused in the characters in the whole town, without making them one-sided and making them sort of one-dimensional. And in John Leguizamo's case, a horrible human being. Now you don't want saints walking around the city and then they're perfect,
right.
because then that's a little too much. But they just don't have any redeeming value. Like we just don't. You know what I mean? So what the script was going for was obviously Berkowitz made everyone nuts and turned the worst side of these people came out. So who's the killer? We have one that's taking human life, and the other ones are doing soulless shit to each other and indirectly taking each other's lives. So I kind of get that, but it's just the characterization. And what's bad about this, Brian, is I think these are some fantastic performances. I thought Leguizamo. That's the weird thing, is Leguizamo's fantastic in this movie.
Yeah.
And Servino is too. This is one of my favorite performances of hers.
Mm-hmm.
So and I thought Brody worked his ass off too. I mean, he was. It's not the most fun thing, but it was at least.
Yeah, this is really early for Brody. I mean, I think this was one of the first films, if not the first film, I remember seeing him in.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Because, I mean, this is before The Pianist. This is before he won the Oscar for The Pianist. So, I don't remember what else he did before this that I would have seen him in. But, yeah, I mean, he's good. You're right. Like, the performers are really good in this.
They're really going, man. They're free. Look at Bebe Neuwirth. Look at Bebe Neuwirth, that little small role she has, but how much freedom she's given, and how risky she is. And oh my God, man! I don't think we had ever seen her this dark. No. If you recall, that same weekend that I rewatched this, I had a little personal film festival. You know this because you follow me on Instagram.
Yeah.
My wife and toddler, my toddler's son, they were out of town for a few days, and so I was just gonna, I just had my own film festival. So I of course had SOS in here because we were gonna have this conversation.
Right.
And it just so happened that in that list of film that I was watching was also Celebrity. And Bebe Neuwirth in there also is she plays, I think, a hooker who teaches what's her name, the character in Celebrity, Judy. Ooh, I want to see it. Here, I'll get it right. I got it right here. Judy Davis. Okay. She teaches Judy Davis how to perform fellatio on her husband by using a banana. and then she chokes, and then Judy has to give her the Heimlich maneuver. It's just a really funny scene. It's sort of like, it's physical comedy. It's Woody Allen directing other actors sort of to do physical comedy like he has experience doing, and they pull it off. So I think this was before this. I think this was well before Celebrity came out.
Celebrity was just before this, and really, I mean.
Oh, before Celebrity was before this. You said just before.
Well, Celebrity was 98. This was 99. So
okay,
they're basically the same time.
They made it's probably possible she shot these two films within the same year, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So she has two. Okay, so there you have it. She had her probably. We had seen her on Frasier, and then we see how Woody used her, and then we see how Spike used her, and both are just incredibly, raw, brave, dark performance of dark characters she's playing without blinking, and and it showed certain, we didn't know that that's who was hiding behind the character in Frasier, or not Frasier, but Frasier and
Frasier and Cheers.
Cheers,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I am not trying to just pull all the positives because there's certainly a lot to talk about with the characters, but the performers. I'm curious how these actors got these performances with reading these sort of one-sided or at least one-dimensional characters.
Well, and I think a big part of that is the type of filmmaker Spike Lee is. Because the thing about Spike Lee, it's like you mentioned that it's like. No filmmaker's filmography is perfect. And that's very much the case with Spike Lee. And I think part of the thing with Spike Lee is that he takes such big chances with the movies that he does. Even in this movie where you're dealing with one-dimensional characters, essentially, he's still taking chances with the movie that he's telling because of the fact that he's essentially doing it. It's weird because it sort of seems like to a certain extent he's adding his voice to like the paranoid thrillers of like the 1970s.
Oh wow.
Like you think about All the President's Men, you think about 3 Days of the Condor and stuff like that, and you figure it's like that's sort of what he's tapping into with this, but it doesn't. Part of the reason it doesn't work is, like you said, the script.
It's the script.
It's the script. He just doesn't have the script this time out.
Right. Spike's known to do that. We've seen that when you got to say if there's anything you can say about Spike, it is that his misses are almost always can be blamed on script choice.
Yeah.
The script wasn't ready and he went into production. So, and most of the time he works with studios, and I don't know how much freedom he had. I know he typically used to have, I want to say at least some kind of a final cut. I never remember him having issues with cuts, but but at the same time, the times when he's missed has been they let the script go. The script was not ready. And they went into production with the script that wasn't ready to go. And then the ones, there's some people who feel like Spike was at his best stuff is when he writes it himself, when he's the writer.
And he does have a writing cred on this, but you feel like it's
he does?
It's probably something that he came onto. The script already existed, and he just tried to put his voice into it after.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't that.
Oh, yeah.
I have a feeling it wasn't necessarily something he developed from the get-go.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense. That definitely looks like that's what that looks like. I definitely see it. I didn't know he had a writing credit on this. I didn't.
He's credited as a co-writer, but it's
it's co-writer?
He's got Victor Colicchio and Michael Imperioli are the other writers.
Imperioli wrote this? Oh my God! So his buddy wrote this. The guy from Soprano, Imperioli wrote this.
Okay.
And then Spike, that's Michael Imperioli. Imperioli from Spring. Spike has like he don't he has some very interesting friends, man. They go way back, you know.
Yeah.
And then he ends up working with them. Like him and John Leguizamo are really really cool. He said that they just never found anything to work on together, and the same with Ed. With Ed Norton. Ed Norton, they've been trying to, hey man, we like each other. Let's do something. And finally, the opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stuff when he writes, if you could make the case, one could make the case that his best stuff is the stuff where he is involved from the door on the screenplay.
Yeah.
He wrote Do the Right Thing. He wrote Do the Right Thing. He wrote Jungle Fever. He wrote Malcolm X. You know, he had collaborators, of course, here and there. He wrote He's Got Game. And you know, so he wrote He's Got Game. And Denzel said that when he got to the end of the script, he called Spike and goes, "Yo, you wrote this?" He's like, "I just want to make sure." So so this is a good case, perhaps, that Spike is. I know how difficult it is to direct something someone else wrote. From my experience with 2050, it was a nightmare because I couldn't see what he said. It's all in his head. I think I was reading it and then I had to reread it. I had to read it and then completely unimagine everything that I read and have to adapt to it on the day and what the space actually is going to look like. It was really a mind fuck for me.
Right.
So to his credit, he does, like you said, he has an incredible great moments, man. A lot of great moments. What did you think about the music?
Oh, Terrence Blanchard. No, that's one of the things I did make a point of mentioning because Terrence Blanchard's score is absolutely fantastic in this. I mean,
awesome.
He's such a great composer, and I'm so glad he finally got a nomination this
past year for
Black Klansman.
Oh my God, he's one of the maybe my top. He might be top three for me favorites ever. He's amazing.
He always brings such a wonderful voice and such a wonderful sense of emotion to Spike Lee's films. And I mean, even films that, I don't remember non-Spike Lee films, although I know I've seen his name on other films that Spike Lee did not direct, but
I can't remember either. You're right. He does have something on something pretty big that I think did he win? Oh, I thought he won for something else.
Wait a minute. Let me see.
I think you're right about Terrence. See, thank God because of this the internet age, we can fact check as we're live on the pod here.
Exactly.
I'm Googling too. Because he's one of my top three favorites, man. John Bryan, Nino Rota, and Terrence Blanchard are my three favorite composers ever.
Yeah.
And so let me see.
Let's see, come on.
Watch, we're gonna be blown away by how many he did do that weren't Spike movies.
Yeah. When I think he did
25th Hour. Oh my God. Yeah. That's one of the best ones ever.
And I think one of the movies he did that was not Spike Lee. One of the ones that I remember is Red Tails, which is the film George Lucas produced about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that was up there too.
Right. He's done pretty much all the Spike stuff up to a certain point. But I think we might be thinking about, Summer Sam. Wow, man, this is crazy to look at. He's done all the Spike stuff up since Jungle Fever.
Yeah.
These are all Spike things. He did the Katrina thing.
Yeah.
Where did I see him in? I'm along with you, man. I saw him for something else, and I can't remember. Cadillac Records. That's probably the only. And I don't even think that's where it was. Oh well.
Let's see.
People I know. Barbershop.
Yeah, there are a lot of there are definitely a lot of non-Spike movies here. But I mean, it is oh wow, Eve's Bayou. I forgot he composed that.
Yeah,
That's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, I mean there
What did you
there's some
think about? So that's the score, but he also killed the. I think the soundtrack is. If you want to ask me, my favorite part of this movie, it's by far the soundtrack.
yeah.
So that's probably what I'm projecting when I say that this is one of my this is on my list of favorites. Despite that, I am a moments guy. I fully admit that. I think 2050 might even suggest that. So I'm big on moments, and
Yeah.
all my favorite movies they have moments. Even if they're not seamless, they're
Hmm.
these incredible moments that for me, for better or worse, satisfy me in a way. And that's what I'm not. We're not talking about the Tarantino movie, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I mean that movie. Brian Ackley and I disagree very much about that movie. I mean, it almost got contentious. I had to ignore him. That's how bad I was getting. Because I
Wow.
loved it. I loved it, and he hated it. I didn't even respond to his email. That's how bad I didn't agree with it. But
Oh man.
um, yeah, I was like, you know what? Screw him. I'm not even
Yeah,
going to
because
respond to this shit.
because I mean I know he's not a fan of it, but yeah, I mean I had my issues with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I mean overall I still thought it was good. I still
So
want
that's
to
what
see
I'm
it
saying.
again. And I still want to see it again, and hopefully I'll get a chance to. And I really want to see him do the miniseries thing like he did with Hateful Eight on Netflix,
Mm,
because
mm,
supposedly
mm.
it is something he's talking about with that and with Hollywood, and it's like I really would love to see that because I mean there's so much about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we're going off on a tangent, but that's okay.
We do that.
That that I really like, but there are other things about where it's like I'm not sure if I necessarily like some of the choices he makes in that movie. So
Right. So that's my question. Do you feel when you sat down and watched it, this is the difference between Ackley and I. When you watch it, are those moments enough to satisfy you in terms of an experience, or is the critic in you or the artist in you that you just can't get around those issues?
overall they're enough to satisfy me because basically the moments that really stand out to me and the moments that really work for me in that movie is ultimately the the bond and the scenes with Rick about Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth with DiCaprio and Pitt's characters
Oh
in
yeah.
that
Oh
movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean those are more than I mean whether it's Dalton um on the set and dealing with the child actor and just sort of kind of realizing that there's a lot of truth to the book that he's reading in terms of his own life as far as how he's going for it in the scene when he is in the scene, the breakdown he has
Right.
in his trailer, and then Booth, you've got
Oh my God.
the fantastic scene with at the Manson compound,
Right.
which I mean
Right.
I
Oh my
have
goodness.
yeah I have issues with it's like I'm not sure if it's overly successful him bringing the Sharon Tate and the Manson murders into it, but it's like overall it doesn't damage my experience of
Your
the
experience.
movie.
Well, and
So
I'm bringing that up because that's how I feel, not only about this film, but I feel about this in when it comes to movies in general.
yeah,
Um, and my biggest experiences, my favorite films are things that felt like an experience,
yeah,
and I can forgive certain misgivings, and I know that's why I get into disagreements with other film lovers because I feel satisfied. That's what it is. And this movie satisfies me because of overly so many great moments. The opening, like you brought up, the opening the movie to Fernando, the
mm-hmm.
song Fernando, and those two girls get shot by Berkowitz, and that's the first image that we see after that incredible opening. I love the opening. I love the newspaper motif that
Yeah, yeah,
motif that he uses, and then they open the movie with the gunshots, and then cut to the car pulling around. And this is something else I wanted to, before I get back to moments, I'm going to do a little brief detour here to get your opinion because I laughed when I saw it. what the hell was Spike doing? Blatantly ripping off Boogie Nights in those opening. We borrow from each other all the time. You know this, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have some people, some filmmakers who literally will respond to another filmmaker subtly in their own head, or
Right.
they said that Paul Thomas Anderson and Tarantino do this all the time. They will one up each other on a certain shot, or look how I'll hold this one longer than you held this one, this shot here. And they do little things like that. But this didn't look like a comment. I mean, I don't know if this was a comment on, or if he was feeling like, hey, I can do one better here.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you did not do one better than the Boogie Nights opening. Okay, those Boogie Nights dance scenes are legendary. Those two scenes with Leguizamo and Savino
Yeah.
are not even close to the great dance sequences of Boogie Nights. So I don't know what he was doing, using the Boogie Nights song as the red car comes along, and then they get out of the car and it's still one take. He did not take the whole shot. Granted, he cut he held the shot from outside of the car until about halfway into the club. Then he cut.
Right.
So it wasn't a full thing, but I don't know. The Boogie Nights came out it was released 2 years before this one. It was in 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out, what was he doing? I was like, what is he like paying homage to a movie that came out 2 years ago? Or is he, what's he doing?
The fact of the matter is, I mean, Scorsese's done that type of the long tracking shots as well. And it's like the long takes as well. I mean, think about the scene in the Copacabana. Where they go into
the best one. That's the best one.
One of the most famous single takes in history.
They showed us that shot in film school, like the first day. So
yeah, it's unbelievable. And so I mean, it's like I didn't even think about that as an homage to Boogie Nights, but I mean part of that might be because of the fact that, I mean, Boogie Nights is a movie it's another movie that it's like I've never been a big fan of.
Whoa, Brian! Whoa! Stop the presses! Whoa!
I'm sorry.
That's insane. Oh, that's awesome. I've never heard that take.
Yeah, I have more respect for it now as a movie than I did when I first saw it, which. Okay, to be fair, when I first saw it in 1997...
I am blown away.
Okay, so when I saw Boogie Nights, another diversion, but that's okay, because we're talking about it. So, okay, when I first saw Boogie Nights in 1997, I saw it in theaters. It was about a week and a half after I saw Goodfellas for the first time.
Oh, wow.
I fucking loved Goodfellas.
Goodfellas is perfect. It's my favorite movie.
Basically... when I was watching Boogie Nights, all I could see is, so this is basically Goodfellas in the porn industry.
Right.
It's essentially what it is. And I couldn't get that out of my head because Goodfellas was something that blew me away.
Right.
Now, granted, it's like that led to me just really actively not liking Boogie Nights for a long time. And I did rewatch, I think, a year and a half or so ago. And I think I like it as a movie. It's a good movie. Is it something that I wouldn't put it in the top tier of Paul Thomas Anderson's. I'm much more of a fan of his work since Punch Drunk Love. But it's a good movie.
It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
I see the value of it now beyond just he's it's his take on Scorsese.
It's his take on Scorsese. Yeah, these guys do this all the time.
So
these guys do that all the time for Richard. They do that all the time. They always people are paying attention but you saw it. These guys borrow from each other. We borrow from each other all the time. And instead of going publicly and bitching about your film, which I don't respect, I don't like when other filmmakers publicly trash another film I just don't like that on social media or whatever, because I kind of feel like you're betraying the community. Mm-hmm. to trash another filmmaker that's, I'm not talking about some big Hollywood tempo, but to trash a filmmaker who's trying something publicly is kind of lame to me.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do something is if you feel like it could have been better, try to do your own version of it.
Right.
And so yeah, now, so that said, I can kind of see what you're saying now, and I'm hoping that you don't ruin my experience going back and compare it to Goodfellas, because I love Boogie Nights, but I love Goodfellas way more. Goodfellas is my favorite movie, and so perhaps you saw it so close to Boogie Nights, and it kind of ruined
that's
your...
what it was. I think if I had had like maybe a month removed from my first time seeing Goodfellas or something like that, that might be a different story. But yeah, I just it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks apart, and it's like, wow. I
well, guess what?
Can't get past this.
Well, guess what, Brian? I'm gonna give you some information here. It might be slightly hard to take, but my take is that the person that ruined the Boogie Nights for you is you. Your decision of when you saw it has ruined what could have been an amazing decision. An amazing experience.
And the fact of the matter is, it's like, I completely understand that, because another movie from 1997 that I actively did dislike the first time I saw it was David Lynch's Lost Highway. It was my first David Lynch film. It's not really a good film to go into David Lynch on. It's
no.
It kind of helps to have something like Blue Velvet or something.
Blue Velvet, yeah. Or Mulholland Drive. Anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even Mulholland Drive, it's like it's accessible, but at the same time, it's like
not really
the surreal aspects of it. It's like, I'm not sure if I would necessarily say, oh yeah, that should be your first David Lynch. I think Blue Velvet probably hits the sweet spot.
That's the safe.
Like accessibility and what David Lynch is about as a filmmaker. But that was a movie where it's like, I didn't like it, and it was because I just wasn't used to Lynch at the time. Because every other time I've seen it since, I like it a little bit more. And it's because I'm more into... I'm more familiar with Lynch now. I'm more familiar with what he's trying to do as a filmmaker now. I mean, ultimately, it's like that's kind of the same thing that happened with Boogie Nights, where it's like I saw it and I'm like, okay, I can see what he's trying to do. I can see that he's not just ripping off Scorsese. He's trying to do his own thing. He's got his own ideas, and they're good ideas.
He did. I mean, so Boogie Nights is 97.
Yeah.
And Goodfellas is 90.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. I was gonna say 4 years apart is crazy. 3 years apart to do that is kind of weird. And I was thinking at first 94. So I just found it weird that he was playing the song Boogie Nights during that shot. So I was like, what the hell that's about? Well, but outside of that. Yeah.
So I would say part of that is because it's such a I would say, as far as going back to Summer of Sam and you recognizing that the same song in Boogie Nights and the same song as in Summer of Sam, it's like it's also a relatively familiar song to the 70s, as far as like it's one of those things where it's like filmmakers setting a tone for, setting a time and place for the 1970s, and especially that era of the 70s with the disco era. That's kind of going to be a song that you probably go to.
All right.
So
that's fair.
That's what I would say as far as that. But yeah, I mean, the connection as far as like the, them at the disco and stuff like that, basically being at the beginning of the movie, and I kind of get that. So,
but overall, the soundtrack, the disco, like you mentioned, oh my goodness, the era. I personally haven't. I don't think that we see enough movies that incorporate disco and that sound. He incorporated it. He had some Sinatra at some point. He had some pop at some point, and a lot of disco. Oh my goodness, love the soundtrack. It could be up there with my favorite soundtracks from a Spike film. It could be up there as one of the top ones. I really love his use of music, and then obviously what he's doing with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, my favorite. My favorite. I want to get your opinion. I would say one of my favorite scenes is probably the climax.
Yeah.
One of the all-time favorite Spike Lee climaxes, in my opinion. Outside of these horrible characters, we have just seen Leguizamo do the worst thing to his buddy possible. He
Yeah.
sets him up basically to get beat to death almost.
Yeah.
He sets him up, which is I saw that and I was like, this guy is the worst character. So after he sets him up, Spike then brings in the Who. We won't get fooled again. And what precedes is the capture of Berkowitz.
Right.
And Spike being the king, one of the kings of spectacle, as Spike Lee. Nobody can build a scene. Very few people can take a scene and just make it into pure spectacle,
right,
the way he does, like he did in Malcolm X, where there's that scene where the Nation of Islam is walking and they're demanding that the minister gets medical attention, and all those Muslims stand out outside of the hospital, and Malcolm raises his finger and points, and those guys single file, they exit in suits.
right.
That's spectacle, man. That's what he's great at. And this scene is a great example of that, by just having these people, these angry mob fans, these angry mobs in the neighborhood with signs, the killer, you are a killer, capture him. And then the police car comes down and the light's just perfect, and the way he cuts it, and Berkowitz's the look in his eye as if he's like famous. To that song, I really, really dug that conclusion.
Yeah, and I will say that ending is, I mean, you're absolutely right when it comes to Spike Lee and the big moments and building big sequences and climaxes like that. And I mean, this is an excellent example of it. It's the one thing where it's like the son of it. It's the biggest part of the movie where I feel like these two separate stories, as far as like Son of Sam and his reign of terror, his paranoia over, and because let's face it, I mean, yes, John Leguizamo basically sells Richie out, but they're already thinking that maybe Richie is Son of Sam because of the changes they've seen in him throughout the year, throughout the movie, because of the fact that he's started to get into the punk scene,
goth and punk scene. Yeah, so, they don't recognize him.
They already have that idea in their heads. He just pushes it a little bit further, and yeah, it builds to that climax, and yeah, that climax is absolutely fantastic. The way Spike Lee builds it and constructs it. It really it's one of those moments where, like, this is why a filmmaker like Spike Lee was, necessary to make a movie like this and make a movie about this subject, because it's similar. It's got the same type of. It doesn't have quite the impact of the climax of Do the Right Thing, which essentially hits a lot of the same beats.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. You can compare those conclusions.
But yeah,
you can definitely compare. Yeah.
But the thing is, and the difference is, of course, with Do the Right Thing, there's such a stronger personal connection to all of the characters in that.
Exactly.
That's why that climax is so iconic and why it's so heartbreaking, because it's like even if we don't necessarily like Mookie throwing the trash can into the pizzeria, we understand why he does it.
Right.
We understand why he does it, and we also, and that's what's so powerful about it. And it's like,
and we're pissed that Radio Raheem got killed.
Yeah,
gets killed by the cop if being too you know,
Yeah.
and that's very difficult to do. We care about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So now that, yeah, that's a good point. If you compare that, especially in light of the climax, to do the right thing,
Yeah.
therein opens up, it exposes the holes in Summer Sam when it comes to story
Mm-hmm.
and character. That's a good comparison, I think.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, part of the problem with yeah, part of the problem with Summer of Sam, in my opinion, unfortunately, is that the only character in that climax that I really have strong feelings about is Richie.
Right. You
And it's
feel
like
bad for
you
Richie.
feel bad for Richie, you don't necessarily, and even though you understand to a certain extent why they feel the way they do, you also, as far as why they're so gung-ho about this, at the same time it's like, really, it's I'm not
It's like
it's
they're looking for somebody to blame,
yeah,
Brian. You
that's
see it. They were
exactly what it is.
they were looking for somebody to blame. They just were so nuts, man. And this guy's coked out of his mind this whole time.
Yeah.
His girl left him. His wife left him. He's cheating. He can't keep his dick in his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has the nerve to point the finger at Richie. And so, I mean, I was just like, oh my god, you have no redeeming value.
Yeah.
What a horrible character.
I mean, it's actually kind of interesting because the more I'm thinking about this ending, the more it feels, not just in how it sort of quotes "do the right thing" in terms of how it builds the climax, but it's an example of Spike Lee. Basically, it's Spike Lee essentially condemning quick quick judgment of other people. Because
Okay.
why are they so susceptible to this idea that Richie is son of Sam?
Right.
They're he they're quick to get to that impression because of they because of the way he's changed over the movie, because of the way he's evolved over the movie. He's not the same as they are.
He's different. He's different.
Yeah.
So, like you
And
said, the judgment of people who are different than us, that we perceive as different than we are,
mhm,
a rush to judgment.
which
That's
which
a
is a very which is very much prevalent in all of Spike Lee's films. I mean, you look at 25th Hour, obviously Do the Right Thing. You look at Black Klansman, it's all of even Get on the Bus is the same way. The ideas of it deals with those ideas, and that's what makes Spike Lee such an impactful and important filmmaker. Even
correct.
when he has a movie like Summer of Sam, which is not perfect by any means, there's something of value in there.
There's something of value in there. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, he there's a lot to untuck. The city, the racial relations of the city, the heat,
Yeah.
the crime spree. I love his ability to tackle other neighborhoods
Mm-hmm.
and other. That's the thing. He doesn't only make films about his what he's personally familiar with. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure being growing up in New York City, he's familiar with it, but he didn't live in the heart of it. And he's made multiple films or had multiple films that had complete storylines in completely different neighborhoods. In this neighborhood that he is covering here, it just was a great sort of view into this neighborhood, this group of people, and it wasn't, they weren't mobsters,
Yeah.
right? So now we have a look inside. He's giving us a look inside this neighborhood, and we're not only looking at the mob families,
Yeah.
Italian Americans in New York City. I mean, in this neighborhood. So that's another thing I can give him a lot of props
Mm-hmm.
on.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we ended up doing this discussion because it gave me a chance to revisit the movie. And
Good.
it's a movie I was going to revisit anyway because I am a fan of Spike Lee. I do
Right.
respect him as a filmmaker. I do think he's one of the great filmmakers of our time, and certainly one of the most important ones. So I was going to
Right.
revisit this at some point, but I'm glad that for this purposes of what I'm trying to do with the movie year of 1999, it gave me a chance to revisit in that context because the thing that's so the thing that's so kind of incredible about that year in particular is that you have a lot of filmmakers taking big swings
Big
with
swings.
movies.
Right.
And even if they don't completely land like this doesn't, it's still something that's important and it's still something that has an impact in one way or another, even if it's not necessarily up there with Spike Lee's best films.
It speaks to the era, right?
Yeah,
So it speaks to that era and that year of this in this incredible year where these people, like you said, took these swings, man. And some of the and if you put it up, if you put it in a different year, your competition is not as high,
yeah,
right? So you're not looking at. I mean, you're up against Fight Club. You're up against American Beauty,
yeah,
being John Malkovich. That's an impossible year to compete. Okay, those guys don't even have a best film.
yeah.
You can't even say who's the best film out of that group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can debate or say favorites, but those were some really great pieces of work. So it is very interesting that he was a part of that era in this release.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's something that if you didn't do, and I'm glad you did this, Brian. It could easily have been overlooked in that year.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you including it in the list there, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me another reason to revisit it. I do from time to time. And yeah, I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and thank you very much for joining me on this. I'm glad we it one of the things that's been so great about not in this series in particular, but one of the things I've tried to do in the podcast in general over the past couple of years is this idea of basically getting filmmakers, getting people who make movies just giving them the opportunity to talk about movies that are not their own and movies that
Okay.
they enjoy and movies that and filmmakers that they appreciate. And
Right.
that's one of the things that's been so great about this is like and pretty much all of these films that the individual filmmakers are choosing, they are their choice. And so it's like,
Right.
hey, this is a movie I want to talk about. And it's like,
Yes.
even if it's not necessarily their top choice, it is a choice. It's it's interesting. I know how I feel about these movies, and it's like and being able to revisit, I have a better idea of how I feel about these movies. But at the
Of
same
course.
time, it's like my interest in doing this series is more to get other people's impressions on how they feel about these movies.
What did you feel about this movie in this era? Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Could you refresh my memory? Which one is my boy Ackley doing?
So we started out. We've actually got three this year. We start out with being John Malkovich. That was the
Oh,
first one
he's
we
so
recorded.
lucky, you lucky son of a bitch.
The next one we did was Bringing Out the Dead, the Scorsese film with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
And
That's
then
that's a
actually,
good
and
one.
then actually, he and I are going to be recording later today. Payback.
Payback.
So yeah.
That's awesome, man.
But you and I still have Blair Witch Project coming up, so I'm
We
looking
got
forward
Blair
to that
Ridge.
discussion.
Yes, sir. I always want to revisit that one as well. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
that, man.
but yeah, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, and yeah, looking forward to Blair Witch and listening to catching up on the rest of the takes for '99, man.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Princeton Holt for joining me to discuss Summer of Sam. It's a movie that I was going to get to at some point anyway because of the fact that I've been going back through Spike Lee's work over the past few years for Movie Week, so it was definitely a movie I was going to revisit. But I'm glad that the class of 1999 has gave me a chance to do it at this point. Coming up, there are a few more episodes that I'm actually going to be recording the day that I'm recording this. We have some thrillers. We have some horror movies coming up in October. We've got 3 really good horror movies coming up in October. I'm also going to try to do some more early access reviews, and some of those might be YouTube videos. Some of those will be print reviews, but I've got a lot more coming on the class of 1999. For now, though, this is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me. Hit me up on patreon.com/SonicCinema. And catch me at the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, as well as www.sonic-cinema.com. Thank you very much.